Good evening. Welcome to the March 29th, 2023 meeting of the Auburn Finance Committee. On tonight's agenda, we're going to review and vote on fiscal 2024 budgets. We'll vote on some transfer requests and also look at some minutes until we adjourn. We have a remote participation. We have a script here. This open meeting of the Town of Auburn Finance Committee is being conducted both in person and remotely, consistent with Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, which suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed to participate remotely as long as reasonable public access is afforded, so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For the public to join the meeting remotely by telephone, 1-786-535-3211 and access code 991-599-357. Or the public can join via computer at global.gotomeeting.com, join 991-599-357. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Please note that this meeting is being recorded by the Auburn Cable Television. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda participating remotely are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Kevin Kennedy?
Here.
Ed Coleman?
Here.
Trevor Sansucci?
Here.
Here, thank you. Michael Marshall?
Here.
Patrick Jones?
Here.
Diane Byrne?
Here.
Town officials and employees participating, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Town Manager Ed Kazanovich?
Here.
CFO Town Accountant Karen Harnois?
Here.
Administrative Assistant Sharon Kwiatkowski?
Here.
Okay, and also please note that each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. All right, so on our agenda, why don't we move some of the transfers up? And we have our Assistant Chief Mills here to talk about the police transfers. There are 5 transfers here. Let me read the first one. First one is transfers coming from the physical fitness line, which has a balance of $10,000. $3,000 is requested to go to department supplies equipment to correct a $550 deficit in the budget line. Do we have any questions for our Assistant Chief?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor? Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And Trevor?
Yes.
Okay, and the chair votes yes. The next transfer is coming from the patrolman line, which has a balance of $35,138.90. $8,086 is requested to go to the sergeant line to correct projected deficit due to shift differentials.
That's not correct.
Madam Chair, we had, she said 8,086.
Yeah, she did.
I think you have the
The
correct.
balance is $48,779 and
Oh, the balance is.
44 cents.
See,
The updated one that I
I didn't change
provided.
that one. All right, so it's coming from an account that has a balance, the balance is $48,779.44. Okay, and, do we have any questions about that transfer?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor? Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And Trevor?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. The third transfer is also coming from the patrolman line, which now has a balance of $40,693.44. The amount requested is $1,650 to go to the firearms stipend. We have 3 patrol officers, firearms qualifications. Questions for the chief or the assistant chief?
Motion to approve? Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor, Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Trevor?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. The fourth transfer is coming from the dispatcher's line, which has a total right now of $31,474.85. Matt requested $30,000 to go to overtime. Anticipated needs to cover special events and leave time. Can you tell us about that transfer?
Certainly, Madam Chair. The, as I've said in previous meetings, last year we spent $307,000 total. If you take into account the 3% COLAs that are across the board, that's around about $9,500. If approved, this request would bring us to just under, I think, $317,000 anticipated for the year. I definitely hope that that will get us to the end. The only potential problem there is, just found out about an additional officer who's going to be out IOD for a period of time. We still have one officer has been out IOD since last June. And then the dispatch grant that I've referred to in the past that pays for the overtime for the dispatchers, based on conversations with the communications director, we anticipate that that will run out sometime in May. We hope towards the end of May, but it may be earlier, depending on what the staffing level stays at in there.
Okay, so you might be coming back for some more then. It sounds like, okay,
I hope not, but it's possible. I'm sorry.
possible, okay. Questions? Yes, sir.
It says special events / leave time. The larger percentage towards covering leave or as opposed to any particular event?
It's a combination, quite frankly. It's obviously the town fireworks are proposed, or the rain date and the actual date both occur within this fiscal year, the last 2 days, I believe, of the fiscal year. So that's a major event for us. We put on 15 or 16 bodies for that, and it's 7 hours worth of overtime per person. And leave time, because of the pandemic, we had 2 years of unlimited carryover, and then last year, the town manager and the CFO approved 15-day carryover, which is in excess of what's approved in the contract, but they were nice enough to do that. So we're kind of now at that point where we've reached the end time of that, where we can't really run away from it anymore. So we do have a lot of people that are carrying an unusually high amount of leave time. So we've encouraged them to try and use it, and we've told them we're going to have to deny days if necessary, which we really haven't done in the past. So we're trying to, as best we can, project out what our needs are going to be.
So that, just to clarify your point, that use or lose time, they can't just automatically take it if they're gonna create X amount of shortage, like, so they can't, 3 guys who use or lose time can't take all 3 guys from the shift, take the night off.
Correct. There's a minimum staffing of 3 patrol officers and a supervisor. So if a supervisor, assuming one supervisor's already off, the other supervisor can't take the night off. So if a lieutenant's off, a sergeant can't have the night off. And for the patrol officers, it can't dip below that 3, and we wouldn't approve it if it was going to cause overtime at that point.
Thank
Just trying to find a balance between allowing them to take the days and being fiscally, responsible. So,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you. Questions? Yes, sir.
The question is, we're down a dispatcher, which is why we have excess in that account?
Correct. Since the fiscal year started, we were briefly up to the 9-person full-time. We had someone leave on March 10th, so that caused another. I know they made a conditional offer to another person recently. I don't know how much time they have to give to their current employer, but so there's been a little gap. But we have, like everybody else, we've had a difficult time maintaining the full staffing in there, but we're doing everything we can to encourage people. And
Yeah, I guess my question is just, do we anticipate the possibility of needing money in the dispatcher's account later if we are able to hire someone before the end of the fiscal year?
no, I think we'll be okay in the dispatcher account, I believe. I may be incorrect, but the encumbrance is based on those 9 positions. So considering that we're below that, once it stops being overtime, it should revert back to what the regular line is.
Okay, all set?
Yeah.
Any other questions? Diane or Trevor, any questions?
No.
No, not at this time. Motion to approve? Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the transfer. All in favor, Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Trevor?
Yeah.
And the chair votes yes. The third transfer is, fifth, is coming from the Sergeant Quinn bill line, which has a balance of $22,816.77. And the amount request is $15,000 going to the equipment line for departmental equipment needs. Can you tell us, what the needs are?
Absolutely. We're trying to get ahead of some anticipated needs for a hiring process that we anticipate starting possibly in May, but hopefully in June. And those recruits require at least, it's $2,000 worth of equipment and is a $3,200 tuition for them to attend the academy. So we're trying to stay ahead of that and whatever other upgrading of departmental equipment that's ongoing. If there's any money left after that, then we would probably put it towards that.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Patrick?
Is the academy and the onboarding expected to be before or July 1st?
The academy won't take place, the academy we're targeting is in October.
So why would it be this year's budget that you would bring it up? I'm just curious because that's what I was thinking, that you mentioned you were anticipating some people going to the academy, but if it's not happening till after 7/1, wouldn't that be considered in next year's budget and already accounted for?
As far as obtaining the equipment, we're going to need the equipment, whether, we don't need it until, yes, technically until after the beginning of that fiscal year. We know we're going to need it, so.
Right, so my question was more that because we're in budget review and we had met, I was thinking that part of this is already taken care of in next year's budget. That's sort of what I was just trying to clarify.
As for the recruit equipment, that was not budgeted for next year.
Okay.
In FY '24.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Just to
Yes.
follow up on Patrick's question, so logistically, how does that work though? So don't you have to cut POs to your uniform vendor and cut a check to the training council for that monies? How are we able to cut funds in this fiscal year for monies that we won't know, we won't get an invoice on until next fiscal year?
So I don't know when the start of the academy is. I know if there's a July start, the academy requires payment in advance of the individuals actually reporting to the academy. So I've seen that before where we would advance the payment because it's required so many weeks before they go in. So that's typically what done. And then they try to equip the individuals as well in advance of them reporting to the academy. So I think you're seeing both of those scenarios taking place.
So it's a timing issue, and I think that's what you're saying, is it being clarified in the discussion, is that even though we're talking about a fall, them being present in the fall, we've got to prepare for it in this budget. There's not enough, and so he's moving money so that he can account for that activity in advance.
So we know if there's a commitment or an entrance, there's a liability that goes along with that uniformed individual. So we recognize that and able to purchase that in advance of them going to the academy.
I understand, I just didn't know if that June 30th date, you would actually have someone be able to get sized and get gun belts and all that things in their sizes I don't know where you'll be in the hiring process at June 30th to have those goods and services delivered. So it's just sort of a timing issue. It doesn't make sense to put the money in this account now, or should we just wait and go back and see what July 1 brings when some of these invoices come due from these vendors?
Well, first I heard, I don't know when these individuals are going into the academy. I mean, sometimes they, that date gets moved around, there are other opportunities.
Fortunately, usually it goes back and not forward, so
Yeah.
October may be, Christmas, ready to go. Okay.
If I may, it was more the known equipment, not so much as you're speaking to sizes and specifics of each individual recruit officer, but we know that there's a specific standardized equipment that they're going to need. Just thought it was, with that surplus salary, it was a good way to get ahead of it and not put a dent in 24 if we didn't have to.
I'm wondering if too, if you, it would be prudent to get the equipment now in case there are any delays in purchasing it, if, you know, supply chain issues.
Possibly, certainly.
Okay, any questions? Okay, hearing no other questions,
Motion to approve?
Second.
okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the, transfer. All in favor, Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Trevor?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Great, thank you very much.
Thank you all, appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, so, we have, from Bay Path today, we have, Kyle Brennan, the superintendent. Okay, and Irene Houle, who's the business manager. Would you like to come up? I hear you have a presentation for us. Thank you.
Good. Good. Excellent. Good evening. Thank you. I'm Kyle Brenner. I'm the proud superintendent at Bay Path Regional Vocational and Technical High School. And tonight we're here to present our FY24 adopted budget. So you can see here, our funding sources are the Chapter 70 and Chapter 71 estimates based on the governor's budget that was submitted February 23rd. Our estimated Chapter 70 funding for FY24 is $14,219,280. Our estimated Chapter 71 funding for 24 is $1,253,844. And these are preliminary estimates, subject to change as the budget moves through the House and Senate. This slide here, you can see the impact that it has on Bay Path. We show FY24 and FY23 together. Our Chapter 70 has an increase of $1,325,599, and the minimum contribution has increased $718,993 for a total increase of $2,044,592. So FY24 total budget for assessment is $28,077,301. Our member towns' assessments are at the minimum. Budget includes a debt service assessment of $1,553,503. Our operational budgets do not require any funds above the minimum contributions by our member communities. And the member assessments total $12,392,443. It's important to note, although the assessments are at the minimum, contribution levels that each town must contribute have increased collectively by $718,993. And we continue to use our transportation reimbursement fund to lower the transportation assessment for our towns. And this year we look to reduce that by $300,000. The financial highlights are total Chapter 70 revenue of $14,219,280. Our school choice assessment is $263,266. And our Chapter 71 busing aid is $1,253,844. That's a significant increase over years past as the governor in the state is moving towards that. Accounts for about a 90% reimbursement fund, not quite the 100 that we've been promised for a long time, but 90 is a lot closer than what we've received in the past. Based on the advice of our auditors, we have increased our contribution to OPEB using our excess and deficiency fund. We've increased it about $25,000. We're looking to contribute $75,000 in FY24. And we'll use $100,000 from E&D to fund net school spending obligation. A little bit small on the screen. Our budget summary for the statement assessments is here. Our operational budget, Chapter 70, is $14,219,280. We lower that by our school choice assessment of $263,266. Add in the assessment minimum contribution of $10,695,233. You see our OPEB transfer of $75,000 from E&D and the $100,000 from E&D for the net school spending gap from the previous year of $100,000 for an operational budget of $24,826,247. Again, our total transportation is $1,697,551. Our Chapter 71 aid is $1,253,844. And our transportation reimbursement fund, $300,000, leaves $143,707 for assessment to our member communities. Our debt service, you can see that our principal is finally higher than our interest for a total of $1,553,503. We have no capital or sewer betterment fee that dropped off this current year, FY23, so that is now zero. Our total budget for assessment is $28,077,301. In our school choice assessment, we add that back in for $263,266 for a total operating budget and school choice of $28,340,567. Our budget highlights. So we look to add a new full-time equivalent veterinary science instructor for our newest program, which will next year have 4 full years of students, and the third teacher will accommodate a full load of students in that. We're looking to adopt a BRIGHT program. BRIGHT stands for Bridges Resilient Youth Transition. What that does is provide a dedicated space, services, and staffing for students experiencing social, emotional, and mental health issues throughout the day. We will add a moderate disabilities teacher as well as a BCBA to provide psychological services throughout the day. We'll add a testing specialist. I know we call it MCAS specialist, but it'll be a testing specialist, MCAS being the largest of our high-stakes assessment testing, but they will also be in charge of our access testing for our English language learners, as well as AP testing and PSATs, SATs, as well as the vocational licensure testing as well. And we'll add an instructional coach. These are administrative positions. They have no evaluative role. So when they go into the classroom, they're truly there to assist our teachers, identify strengths that we can use and share with other teachers, and identify weaknesses that we can provide the services for in the professional development. And we look to add a guidance counselor for our freshmen. Currently, our 4 guidance counselors exceed the maximum 250-to-1 ratio for our guidance counselors. Our freshmen experience the most transitions. They're coming from sending towns who are no longer with their cohorts that they were with for grades 1 through 8. And for the first half of the year of their freshman year, they transition every 2 weeks from the vocational programs they're exploring till they finally land in their shops after the holiday break. So this person will provide the much needed services there and reduce the load on our other guidance counselors. We'll continue to use our Student Opportunity Act SOA funds to provide significant professional development to our staff, especially programs focused on social, emotional issues of students. I'm sure that it's not the first time you heard that from the schools, and we'll use our SOA funds to provide programs and speakers to our students to address issues such as bullying, bias, mental health, and more. We'll create a full-time position for our athletic director with the increase in extracurricular activities. This is currently a stipended position that most of the duties occur during the day, and we're pulling that teacher out and putting a sub in, getting subpar instruction for those students, and splitting duties across many. So we're fortunate that we can add a full-time athletic director to give the extracurricular activities the attention that they need. We'll create a position for an athletic trainer. This is required by MIA for all away and home football games. So this will provide that person to provide the safety. COVID was fortunate enough to infuse our schools with new technology. With that infusion of new technology, there's more needs for fixes and repairs, and we need a new IT network technician, so we'll add that. Currently, human resource duties are split between the business manager's office and my office. They're far exceeding the roles and extra duties that are continuously piled on. So we'll create a human resource specialist position as well. And our current financial software and HR software is end of life. So it's been end of life for a couple of years. We keep breathing life into it. So we look to upgrade our software system in that and do away with a lot of the manual workarounds that we have. And we've included wage increases for all our employees. And we are funding unfortunately, but fortunately, it's been very good for us. Our first increase in health insurance premium since 2018. We're looking at just over a 6% increase in that. We've accounted for the increase in supply and material accounts for all our shops. In a vocational school, it's more than just the textbooks and the papers that we need. Wood, metal, air gas, and all of those have gone up. We've accounted for that. And we look to add textbooks for our math department, our science department, some of our shops, as well as our social studies department. Where significant shop equipment upgrades would be for advanced manufacturing to replace the Haas CNC machine, computer numeric control machine, which is nearing end of life. And we'll upgrade all the welders in our metal fab, the MIG-TIG welders are nearing end of life. And we'll update our SimMan and get a working SimMan for our health tech students as well. We've accounted for a building facility use study. We were fortunate to have the expansion, renovate, not really an expansion, but renovation in 2015. We are at capacity. Our academic teachers share space in classrooms. Our shops are bursting at the seams. So we are looking to have a professional come in and see if there's any efficiencies to the building that we can utilize and make some good moves there. And we'll add a new full-time equivalent custodian as well. So this is the FY24 proposed freshman seat allocation. It lists all 10 communities. It's based off the capital population of each one of those. You can see that. All of them listed there. Auburn accounts for 2,746 of our 17,769 total capital population, which equates to about a 15.45%. And we use that to calculate the number of seats out of the 325 available seats, which equates to 50 seats for incoming freshmen for Auburn. This is our foundation enrollment. You can see FY24 and FY23. There's actually a decrease of 1 student from FY23 for a total of 117 students in FY24, accounting for rough 117 of 1,232 total students at Bay Path. And this is the Town of Auburn Foundation enrollment. You can see the Auburn Public Schools as well as Bay Path totals for FY24 and FY23. Bay Path has a reduction of 1 student going from 118 in FY23 to 117. And this is a required contribution. That box is in the way. I'm afraid to touch the boxes for fear that it'll all shut off, but let me try. Yeah, so you can, I'll move it over here. There we go. So FY23 required contribution was $17,422,029. Municipal revenue growth factor was 4.01%. FY24 preliminary required local contribution, $18,120,652. Excess shortfall for the local effort, $174,220 for a total required local contribution for FY24 of $18,294,872. And just below that, you can see the breakout for the Town of Auburn as well as the Bay Path Regional Vocational School District. Bay Path's foundation budget is $2,366,134, or 6.85%. So yeah, it did something. Now it won't advance. Oh, there we go. All right. So FY '24 total required contribution is $18,294,872. And that amount is spread among the districts based upon the foundation budget. So again, showing Town of Auburn as well as Bay Path compared FY '24 and FY '23. You can see the percent changes there. And Bay Path down below again is $1,253,165. for a change of $46,618 over FY '23. This is a school attending children report. We've kept this in since they've started recording it back in 2013. Some of the towns like to see it. You can see all 10 towns listed there. Auburn is highlighted at the top for, an increase, which you can see is rare among all our other communities of 179 total students since school year 2013. And the change, just as you saw on the previous slide, was 4 total students less than last year, sorry. And this is our statement of assessments. Everything comes combined here. We use the foundation enrollment and the capital population in accordance with our district agreements. You can see the total minimum contribution of $10 million. Auburn's share is $1,253,165. Dollars Air Foundation enrollment is 117 of the 1,232, which is a 9.5% ratio, and we multiply that by the total transportation assessment of $143,707 for Auburn's share of $13,647. The total capital population is 15.45%. We multiply that by our debt service. There is no capital improvement on that. Total debt service, $1,553,503. Auburn's share is $240,076 for a total assessment of $1,506,889. And we just break it out here. Again, comparing against FY '23, FY '24 proposed minimum contribution has increased $48,618. Transportation has decreased by $37,608. Debt service has decreased by $2,748, and capital improvement has decreased by $4,781 for an overall total increase in the assessment of $3,481, or just 0.23% increase. And I thank you for your continued support, and we can try to answer any questions you have.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay, let's start. Kevin, questions?
Yes, just a couple of questions. So, school choice assessment. So you have non-member students going to Bay Path that are not part of non-member communities. How does school choice work in terms of Bay Path?
So great question. No, we do not have non-member students attending the school. School choice for us would be a student, I'm going to use Southbridge, for example, a student in Southbridge, which is a member town. School choices to Tantascwa Regional School District in 7th or 8th grade. They're now a Tantascwa student, and if they enroll in their vocational program, which they have, Chapter 74 programs, they're our responsibility because they come from Southbridge. So we send the 74 money to Tantascwa. So the 262 primarily counts for about 40-ish, 48 students, anyway, that are our member town students attending a vocational school other than Bay Path.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All set. Ed, you had a question?
Oh, yes, to the chair. Good evening.
Good evening.
I just have a couple of questions. I tend to look at the words and I probably read them literally, but I'm sure it's not that. So in the PowerPoint, when it said wage increase for all employees, when I look at the budget, it's a little different than the school department in Auburn, so I'm struggling a little bit, but I do see a lot of zeros. Does that mean literally that each employee got a increase, or was it more contractual?
So, good question. We are currently negotiating the collective bargaining agreements of all bargain for employees. So the wage increases are not reflected in the line items.
Okay.
It's in reserve because we don't know what that is. So we put it in payroll reserve.
And then on the supplies, you did a nice job explaining, like kind of budgeting for that. It looks like a lot of the supplies are about 6%. And my little knowledge of vocational, but it looks like you got a lot of wood,
Yes.
building, mechanical. Inflation, does that seem like a sufficient increase for those type of supplies?
Looking at historical, knowing that inflation is over 9, they kept us at 4.5, 6. We settled on the 6%. This year, it's worked out pretty good for us, so we feel comfortable with that.
Then one final question.
Sure.
On the OPEB liability, I see that you mentioned you're funding 75,000. Do you have a rough estimate on how much of your obligation is funded? Because I've heard that some communities, they have to bond. If whoever regulates it comes in and says, you have until 2026 to be whatever that number is. If you can't do it, you might have to bond it.
That I'm unfamiliar with. I don't know if they're going to hold us to that or not. We do have an actuary that reviews this for us every year. And, we just keep putting money in. They have a number that they think would make sense. And off the top of my head, I'm going to say that's about 13 million. And we're approaching maybe $1 million. So we've got a ways to go. So if they want it by 2026, which is news to me, I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay.
But I think so long, 2026 maybe, and I'm going to make a guess here, might be when you have to have it in place that you're getting ready for it. So we can show that. Fortunately, this was started back around 2015 or so. So that's where we are with the OPEB contributions.
So they would generally give plenty of notice to a town. They wouldn't just all of a sudden say, you got 2 years to
Right.
be at.
Yeah, I'm going to look into that just to make sure that we're not behind. But I believe between our actuary and our auditors, they would have let us know if we were in fact, gee, did you guys know you've got 3 more years to get to that point? But I'm going to double check just to be sure.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Michael, question?
I think you answered a couple of them. I noticed that legal services and salary reserve were both high. I'm assuming that's because of the collective bargaining.
Yes.
Okay. The software line is like a 1,357% increase. I'm assuming that's related to the HR finance software, but is that a
So
one-time
that is
expense?
primarily the new software system.
And is that a one-time expense or is it like
That
a
is, it's a
subscription?
combination. It's the one time getting a brand new system, and then the new fee will be running the two systems concurrently for the first year, until you make the final transition. But then it should go back to just the normal yearly fee.
Okay.
And right now, that's anticipated to only increase at the normal rate. Based on, we had gotten some preliminary quotes a year ago, put the project on hold, and now we're going to be moving forward with it next year.
And then my last question was just on electricity, just like comparing expended to the proposed or the adopted budget for 2023 or 2024. It's a pretty sizable increase. Are you guys anticipating like higher usage? Did a rate agreement end or like?
I'm having trouble hearing.
Electricity, the sizable increase for electricity.
Yeah, that's a long, sad story. So number one, National Grid has increased or had increased by about 45%. They've since been beaten back a bit. We also had a contract expire. So we're in the process. I was able to secure a short-term contract at a much lower rate. So unfortunately, my next 3 months are going to be somewhat lower. And we'll be going out to bid around August, to get a better contract going forward. So some of that's kind of a one-time blip. But again, it's, that's just the market, unfortunately.
I think that's
Trust
all.
me, I cry every time the bill comes in.
Okay, thank you. Patrick?
Thank you. Through the chair, I have a couple of questions. First of all, I think this is pretty, there's a lot once you go through the pages that is here, and I'm really appreciative of the detail. Though I have one concern. I think that when you get to the statement of assessment, I know that the 12,392,433 for the member towns is not stated in that, but it also makes up a portion of what is in operational with transportation and debt service. So when I do the math and I flip through a series of pages, I can connect the dots. But with that said, I just thought it might be, you give a lot of numerical backup for the town of Auburn, but I think in none of your statements can we tie back any specific number to any specific chart. It takes a little bit of digging. So I just think that because we seem to always look at the balance of students, the freshmen coming in, the total number. And I think some of us that are in finance are trying to discern, how is it that our variable rate is going up or the fixed areas are going down. And so it gets complex when you're down one person, but you've got multiple layers of classes. So I just wanted to suggest that maybe in the narratives that you produce, if you could maybe do a summary for the particular town that you're supplying this to after you've done your overall presentation to sort of summarize the impact it's had, against maybe even a year or two, like our enrollment is up, our enrollment is down. These particular things have happened as it impacts that particular community. Because I just think it would help us to discern when we're trying to understand our series of numbers, what we're trying to compare to and learn. Because it's a lot of information and you did an excellent job at presenting it. I'm gonna ask you two additional questions. One is on the excess and deficiency area. I know a lot of acronyms, but can you help me with the NSS obligation?
Sure.
That's net school spending, which is the minimum amount that DESI says you must spend on qualified items. So the reason your transportation assessment is separate is because transportation is not a net school spending expense. So what happened was a couple years ago, and this has happened sometimes in the past, but for the fiscal year 21, there was a deficit in the net school spending. We did not spend as much as DESI said we were supposed to. So what happens is that gets added to your next school spending for the next year, and then it keeps, every year they true up, so to speak. So right now, we've got this deficit, and we're trying to work it away. So that eventually we get to zero. They tell us to spend X, we spend X, and everyone's happy.
So to state that you used 100 from excess and deficiency, at one point you had a little bit of extra money that you were
Correct.
able to find to help chip away at that deficit.
Yep.
Great. And then my last question is, since OPEB has come up and it is a going concern for a lot of communities, can you tell me if you know if your OPEB portfolio has a low, moderate, or aggressive approach?
Currently, I'm going to call it moderate.
Okay.
We did have, it was going gangbusters for a couple of years, but all of a sudden.
Everybody's OPEB went down
Yeah.
last year.
But for the last year, not so much. So I'm actually in the process of talking to a group called PARS, which is who does our OPEB for us, and trying to make sure that we realign if we need to and get it back to where we'd like it to be.
We realize that OPEB is long-term. Most of us that decide on it and put money away today, we won't even be alive when it actually gets influenced. But I think the point is to think that there's long-term investing options and to try to be as, to have your advisor work with you to make it as strong as possible so that in the future it takes care of itself.
And that's where we have a professional do it.
Exactly, and we're not going to help you either. But thank you. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, Diane, would you have any questions regarding the, for Bay Path visitors?
I do not, thank you.
And Trevor, any questions?
No, not right now, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have a question about transportation. I see that, where does that, offset come from, the $37,608? We have a proposed assessment, or can you explain the assessment and what the, reduction there is? Or is it just, how is it so much less this year than it was?
Okay, for two reasons. during the COVID year, the following year, because we spent so much less on transportation, we got significantly less Chapter 71 money because it's a percentage of what you spent. So all of a sudden in that year, I wasn't going to get a lot of Chapter 71, so I had to increase my assessment. This year, the exact opposite has happened.
Okay.
The state has, not only do I have a full amount, to get a percentage of, but the state has gone up to 90% reimbursement, whereas before we were running 50 to 75, depending on the year. So that's why.
So we can expect that, next year it won't be as low. We should expect definitely an increase.
Actually, if they go to 90% again, okay, and that's supposedly, that's what they're building towards, because 50 years ago, when they put the regional districts together, they were claiming it would be 100%. That was part of the carrot.
Right.
Okay, so assuming that they're going to stick to 90%, it should continue at about the same pace. Now, what might go down, which would then potentially increase your portion, the transportation reimbursement fund. Because if they're returning 90% to me consistently, the idea that I would have extra at the end of the year, because usually what happens is they give us an estimate, I put it in the budget, and then in July, they let me know that, oh, by the way, we're probably going to give you a little bit more.
Yep.
And so that's the money that goes into that reimbursement fund that I can then use in the following fiscal year.
Okay, thank you. My other question was about the debt service. What year are we in and how long is the term?
To the best of my knowledge, it expires in 2044. So we're roughly 10 years, 9 to 10 years in, and we've got 20 years to go,
2044?
correct?
Okay. Okay, and is it level service?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
up until the last year or two, then it gets kind of wonky, but for the most part, it's level.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I'm just curious, when you did that bonding, was there a premium? Is there anything sitting in escrow that's even going to help later? Or is it flat out?
I was not here then, that was,
Okay.
I've only been here just under 2 years. To the best of my knowledge, no, it was strictly just like your mortgage. We took it out and we'll be paying it off, for the next 20 more years.
Okay. Any other questions? So we have a, Bay Path Department request, Bay Path budget, $1,506,889. And that is also the town manager's recommendation. That has an increase of $3,482 or 0.23%. Do I hear a motion to recommend?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Trevor?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you very much for coming out. We appreciate your time to come visit us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that's all set. Okay, so next on our agenda, we're gonna look at the Department of Public Works. Okay, so I see Joanna Paquin here. You can come on up. Do you, want to, give us any presentation beforehand or give us any highlights, or should we just go right through the budget?
I did not prepare a presentation.
Okay.
I think that,
That's, or just any highlights or anything you,
in general, I think it's probably the same as all the other departments. Materials, utility costs are increasing, so we wanted to
Yep.
account for that.
okay. I understand. All right, good. So let's take a look here. So the first, within the Department of Public Works, the first, account is for the, Engineers Division. Fiscal 2023 appropriation, $676,593. Department request, and town manager, recommendation, $709,026, and that's an increase of, 4.79%. Do we have any questions on that, those line items? Questions? And then, and if, I wanted to look at the, hold on a second. I believe there's an opening, correct?
Yes,
Okay,
currently have two.
we have two openings. One for an assistant town engineer and one for a civil engineer.
Correct.
Okay, where are we in that process of getting someone?
So we've advertised for the assistant town engineer, and I wanted to wait until we found somebody and hired them. With everything that's going on, I don't know where we're gonna end up with, the wages.
Yep,
So once we have that person in place, then we'd be looking for the junior, the civil engineer.
okay, so you've done the civil first and the assistant, I
The,
understand.
the assistant first and then the civil.
Oh, okay. Assistant, then, all right. Have you had a problem finding anyone? Yeah, okay. All right, the next department, hearing no other questions, is stormwater. The appropriation for fiscal 2023 is $231,000, and that is the department request and the town manager recommendation. Oh, excuse me, no, I beg your pardon. The fiscal 2023 appropriation is $387,475, and the department request and town manager recommendation, $398,939, which is about a 2.96% increase. Do we have any questions on that subdivision?
Through the chair.
Yes,
So are those services, the replacing catch basins, are those done in-house or are we contracting out to,
Oh, those are done in-house.
those are done in-house?
all right. Hearing no other questions, continuing, the next subdivision is the highway division. Total administrative line is fiscal 2023, $904,167. Department request is $976,143. Town manager recommendation, $974,143. Okay, do you want to, any questions about those line items?
Through the chair. So is that increase just due to like contractual obligations, or is there a new position from last year? Sorry, in the wages full-time line, $50,000 increase. I'm just curious if that's like negotiated salaries or if we've added positions.
So we did account for the negotiated salaries, and then, there was a position that, is funded through, used to be funded through the sewer, division and is now in highway.
Did one individual move over, or?
No, it's,
I think this will all come back to your memory bank. So this was
Okay.
the whole discussion about the EVT specialist that's working on fire apparatus. Funded through ambulance receipts has been baked into the highway
Okay.
wage account.
Okay,
So we have an available fund offset of
Yep.
X for, from ambulance receipts to offset that position.
okay, that makes sense. Questions? No? Any other questions on that?
Just could you give us a general overview of staffing and positions that are vacant, who you're looking for? Are you looking for any additional positions? Are there any positions that you're paring away from?
so currently in highway or in DPW in general?
I guess whichever you want to, however you want to cover them. Do you want to cover highway first or?
So in highway, we currently have somebody that has been out for an extended period of time. So, hopefully we can get somebody in or that person will come back. So there has been, there's been excess money in that budget just because, they haven't been at work for, and.
We have an individual out on workers' comp, so we are, that individual is paying directly through a policy under workers' comp. So it is generating a surplus, but as the director has stated, that position has been, I don't want to call it vacant because it's still obligated to. But there is we were down one body.
This is sort of maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but the fleet maintenance budget has a wages line, and it's a very low number. And I see that the fleet maintenance people are in highway. Who's, like, are we just paying part of it through fleet maintenance? Is there a reason that we've divvied it up, or that we have some of these positions there and some?
So historically, the fleet maintenance positions were, some of them used to be in sewer, and there's two that are paid through highway, and one is that currently paid through ambulance receipts. The majority of the fleet maintenance budget goes to, any stipend, any differentials. So if we have highway employees that fill in, or, if the garage needs additional help, then those highway employees will get, a differential for the work that they're doing in the garage.
So Michael, we have 3 individuals currently working in fleet.
Yep.
The only wages you're looking at are for differentials for those individuals. And we are seeking to hire one more. We do have we will have a vacancy that we will be looking to bring on a 4th.
So through the chair, while we're on that topic, so is your plan eventually to have a true fleet maintenance department? Because I know you've had people that have come over from sewer and highway with different unions. So is that why they're still remaining within those highway and sewer groups, as opposed to, I guess as a goal, and through our conversations last year, it would be nice to have a true fleet cost for the town of Auburn. And if we're still seeing wages and salaries and people in different departments, it's hard to get a true, wrap your head around a true cost of what our fleet is in town.
No, just because the way that it was structured at the beginning, it becomes problematic, because there are, different individuals that come from, whether it's sewer or highway, and they're 2 different unions. So it creates a little bit of an issue, but.
But if you were to post today for a new fleet mechanic for the fleet maintenance division, would you put their salary under fleet maintenance?
Our ultimate goal is to do exactly what you had suggested, and we are having discussions relative to that right now.
Thank you.
So is that a union issue at this point? You'd have to, take them from, well, whatever, that's all right. Different.
So because it involves various personnel, I can't comment on that
Yeah.
publicly, but that's something that we're looking at.
All right,
Thank you.
okay.
It's
Yes,
less a question and just more a comment. I know that there was there were lots of questions when we bought the lift a few years ago. So I think, just to reiterate from Kevin's perspective, like, it is very difficult to understand what the impact on town expenses has been since we bought that, which was supposed to help reduce expenses. And part of my frustration on it all is that there is, like, the fleet maintenance budget is not a full encapsulation of our fleet maintenance efforts. So I would just, I guess, reiterate my excitement for the future state where we have a fleet maintenance budget that hopefully accurately reflects fleet maintenance, because I know it comes up like every year at town meeting, and it would be, I'm sure it would be helpful to people if they could see the cost.
Absolutely.
okay. Any other, so let's look at the next division is, the highway maintenance total. Fiscal 2023 appropriation, $79,550, and the department request and town manager recommendation, $87,450. Any questions on any of those lines? Or any of the other areas?
Is
Yes,
the
sir.
increase in yard waste, because of a contractual increase, or are we increasing the number of times the number of weekends that we're going to be doing that?
No, so the increase would be to remove the yard waste, so we have, it's problematic to try to process that yard waste to get a chipper in. Last year, we were able to, have Worcester agree to come in, at a cost. Obviously, we paid Worcester employees to process that yard waste material. Ideally, it would be, I would want to have that done twice a year. Just because when those piles, build up, there's chemical, things that are going on in there and it starts to steam and,
Yep.
then we had complaints from the Mass.
So you're saying that there's a chemical discharge that seeps out into the area?
It's not a chemical discharge, it's just, it's starting to disintegrate and it's creating energy, so steam comes out of it.
Got you.
And,
I'm with you.
and then people are concerned that it's catching fire, but it's
They call
actually,
911 and they call the barracks ad nauseum to say
So-
fire next to the highway.
Spontaneous combustion.
I'm with you. I understand.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
it would make it easier to get rid of it, but we don't want that. So, we haven't gotten to that point, but to make room in the yard wastes, the yard, as well as to at least eliminate any, especially in the cold weather, that steam coming up. I'd like to, be able to get somebody in, even if we can't have, Worcester employees come in. We were able to find a company that would do it. There's not a lot of companies that are willing to do that, but, it gets a little costly. So that's why we wanted to bump it up.
While we're on the yard waste, do we have negotiations with our trash hauler? Is that the leaf pickups? Is that part of the Casella negotiation as well? And when is the leaf yard opening? That's you? When's it opening?
So, we do have, the new spring, schedule, that'll be posted, and it starts the week of April 24.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll bring it up when you're on microphone so everybody can hear that. Nice weather, although the bags are already starting to pile up in my yard.
Okay, question? Looking at the next subtotal, we have, the highway motor vehicle maintenance. So I see, let's see, fiscal 2023 appropriation, $20,000, and the, department request, $36,500. The town manager recommendation, $31,500. Any questions on that? Okay, next we have, snow and ice. Fiscal 2023 appropriation, $539,400. Department request, $637,000. Town manager recommendation, $622,000. So I see that there's an increase in this, which is our plan going forward. Is that correct, Ms. Kezinovich?
Yes, we've been trying to increase this on an annual basis so we don't, and we're currently in a deficit position right now despite the mild winter.
Yep.
There's been a lot of late winter, early spring situations where we've been forced to go out and salt the roads. And the cost of salt and calcium is through the roof. So I think this budget recommendation reflects that recognition of increased costs. We don't see it going down. But certainly this is one area where we'd like to appropriate, at least to the extent of prior year actuals, to keep pace with increasing costs. So we don't have to rely on our reserve account to bail this out at year end.
Yep. What is our deficit right now, approximate?
170, I think. I think
Okay.
I just got an update the other day, and Karen, I don't know if I gave that to you, but I think we're at 170. I think there is $30,000 of surpluses in other accounts that we could use in offset to the 170, provided we don't have other situations that force us back out again.
Okay. When you say 30,000 in other accounts, $30,000 in the highway department accounts?
$30,000 within the snow and ice.
Within, oh, okay, all right. And then I know we tend to close that out if we can at the end of the year. All right, good. Questions? Any other questions on snow and ice?
That 170 is 170,000, not $170. Correct.
Okay, before I talk about facility maintenance, I just wanted to go back and, ask about the, road reconstruction. So fiscal 2023 appropriation, 510,000, I see it's increased by $15,000 to 525,000. Will that be a sufficient amount? A lot, or do we know, I should ask first, what are our highway, what are our chapter 60 funds gonna be?
The,
609 again.
yeah, it's been pretty consistent.
So I know the legislature, there was an attempt to increase the chapter 90 distribution from 200 million to 300 million. That has not happened. There may be a consideration for a supplemental chapter 90 distribution. And we'll let you know if there's any possibility that we may benefit from. But I think as the DPW director will tell you, we're getting less for the money that we currently have than we
Right.
did a couple of years ago because of increased costs. So I think I think our annual allocation of chapter 90 and our local contribution through various sources paved about 4 miles of road. That same amount of money only pays
About half of it.
half of that, 2 miles of road. So it would be nice if we could increase, and I'm not saying incrementally increase like we did in prior years, because we came up with tax levy money of a local contribution of 525. If we back that out, our roads would be not where they are today.
Right.
So I'd like to make a commitment that, if, when possible, that we increase our local share of 525. And certainly, we may have an opportunity to do that at the fall town meeting, because we still have $1 million left on the table. And I'm not looking to go to the full extent of 2.5. But even if we throw another 50, another 75, and we maintain that on an annual basis, it gets us a little more work done.
And is there a list of roads that the town will be working on this summer?
So there is a list of roads, on the town website. It's the same list as we had last fall. The contractor had started with drainage improvements last fall, so, they should be able to, once they come into town, they should be able to get through, those roadways pretty quickly.
So the list is, okay, the list is on the, town website. Good, thank you.
Through the chair, on that same topic, wasn't there a plan, and it may have been through your predecessor, where X number of years we would have gone through all the roadways in town? Has the increased costs, that we've fallen off of that plan, and where do we need to reevaluate where we are in terms of that, in terms of timeframe, just to keep us, to find out where we need in terms of finances to increase, to stay on that plan? Because if you know the length of, the life of a road, if you did a road today, you've got 20 years, so therefore everybody should really, within, I'm just using that as a number, 20 years, you should get everybody replaced, because that one that you did today is gonna need to be replaced after that.
No, so, there is a plan for, when, Bill and I used to work on the roads in prior years, we were looking at, maybe 20, 25 years, and if you pulverize a road, then you definitely have that 25, you're comfortably in that 25-year mark. Last year, we took a big hit with, those price increases. I don't know where, the next bid is gonna go. I'd wanna see what, where we come in next, at the next bid, before I completely revamp this, just because I'm hoping that it's not gonna be as dire, just because it was pretty shocking when we saw what we could afford for, for the money that we had historically.
Okay.
Well, I would just say, like, other costs, I would think, if your plan says 5 miles of road per year, then you should just, there should be a cost that you have to come before us for and say, to stay on that plan, which I think residents of a lot of things will support. that's the, you know, the number one, hey, where am I on the list? People wait for that list to be posted to find out where they are.
No, absolutely.
You know, if it's a true cost, it's a cost to stay on that plan. As
I
opposed
think there's gonna be an aggressive push at the legislature level to increase chapter 90, given what the local communities is seeing, and certainly you're seeing the effects of that here. And if there is any consideration to fund at a level of 300, that would put us somewhere, it would bring us like from 600,000 to 900,000. 300,000, I know it doesn't take care of Auburn's problem, but at least it helps chisel away, you know, that extended period of time, because certainly common sense is gonna tell you at a funding schedule that was done by Bill and Joanne, and they did a great job rating the roads, puts us on a 20-year schedule at a funding of roughly $2 million a year. Now, if it goes to 4, you know it's gonna blow that plan apart, so.
Thank you.
Okay, good, thanks. Questions on that? Gentlemen, no, okay, so continuing, let's look at the, facility maintenance department has did I already do that one? No, it has a fiscal 2023 appropriation, $87,145, and the department requests and town manager recommendation are the same, $87,388, a 0.28% increase. Okay, and then we have the fleet maintenance department.
Could I just ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
So, just another sort of comment, this seems to be, again, a division of your department that has grown, and they're sort of the go-to guys in this community right now for projects, small projects. But we can't really tell the true cost of the facilities department, because all we're seeing is a differential. Am I correct in reading this?
That's right.
I think it sort of goes back to sort of what we're talking about with the fleet costs. You know, if we've been a facilities department, it would be nice to know how much the facilities department costs, as opposed to the guys that grab the facilities truck and they get a differential for going, but they're really under your, I imagine they're highway employees?
They're highway employees.
All right,
I think what complicates that is the allocation of time. So although they're primarily maintenance, there are times when they're required to be out on the road for plowing, be out on the road for certain things. So how you budget that, it becomes very difficult.
Sure.
So,
I guess I would rather see their base salary under this one and then a, you know, plowing contractual differential towards those off days, since probably 300 of their days are, you know, working in facilities. But that's just a preference. Again, it's just to be able to view this a little bit more clearly, that's all.
Yeah, and in the future, again, I apologize, I didn't bring a presentation, but that might be helpful to have that breakdown so that, aside from the budget, that information is more readily available.
Yeah, it would be nice to know, you know, I know they're working on Camp Gleason, it would be nice to know what other projects have they, this piece here, again, it's not a big piece, but it's just a differential, but how many other salaries, how many guys are going out? I imagine there's at least 2 guys that are sort of dedicated.
Right.
You know, what have we gotten for that investment? So,
Absolutely.
okay, so I think I'm repeating myself, I apologize. Here's the fleet maintenance line, fleet total $275,663. Department request and town manager recommendation are the same, $291,508. That's an increase of 5.75%. And we've talked a lot about the repairs and the cost of the parts, so I can see how that's an increase. Now we've got the Parks Department, the fiscal 2023 appropriation, $323,502. Department request, $384,916. Town manager recommendation, $338,506, and that's a 4.64% increase. Okay,
can I just ask a question?
yeah,
on the,
sure.
The parks, so and again, it looks like it wasn't there last year either, but your seasonal employees, are you eliminating seasonals for the parks?
So we were hoping to eliminate seasonals and increase the the number of full-time employees. We have the ability to, you know, share some seasonal with cemetery if they need some help. Last year, we lucked out a little bit just because, there was absolutely no water, so there was a little bit of a drought, so, there wasn't a lot of, mowing or as much mowing as in previous years. But our goal would be to increase the full-time employees.
Is that out of a difficulty in getting seasonal workers? Because it seems like, you know, we just had this discussion with Bay Path, this OPEB and benefits, how they, you know, long before our lifetime, a lot of folks are trying to get away from adding more full-time employees onto the, you know, and the seasonal folks, the grass mowing, the weed whacking, all the sort of that grunt work.
Well, so the seasonal help for parks, we, you know, their busy time is already, you know, is already starting. And they can go way into November, and then in the winter, they, you know, they're still working outside, but as well as, in the garage, doing their small equipment repair. But, in addition to that, the component of training somebody and the safety training for, you know, for the equipment, and the seasonal, guys would be I don't want to call them kids, but the employees would be, they would be limited to what equipment they would be able to use.
And just, again, just briefly on parks, do you have enough in terms of staff? I know we've discussed over the years, you know, they did some beautiful jobs on Route 12 with the Veterans Corridor, but, you know, they put all this stuff in with hundreds of yards of mulch, and then they drove away and left it in your hands. There's a lot there. I mean, another monument was just erected at the corner of Water Street. That's gonna take maintenance, I imagine. I don't know if that falls to you as well, if that's a private monument, but at some point, you know, these things all take work. We think about how we work on our own properties, it takes time and effort. The amount of areas that your people are responsible for it's amazing they get it done, but are you okay in terms of staffing?
I think ideally, I would like to increase that, the number of employees in parks. I know that, the town was, you know, gracious enough or, you know, generous, last year that we were able to add another seasonal employee. We would like to, increase it by one more. I know that, these are not great economic times, but, in the future, I would like to see, you know, another employee, in that division, just so that they can keep up with the additional responsibilities that they've taken on over the years.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions? Continuing, okay, so now we're looking at the Packagon Golf Course. The fiscal 2023 appropriation, $500. The town department request and town manager recommendation are the same, $278,600. That's an increase of, oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one again. Okay, so fiscal 2023 appropriation, $455,525. Town manager, and department request are the same, $558,288, an increase of $102,763, or 22.56% increase. Can you tell us about the increase there? Yep.
Sure, we're looking to increase some staff. There's seasonal employees that we're looking to, add on as rangers. There's been some complaints during busy times, to have somebody out on the course, making sure that the play goes through, they're speeding up the play so that, you know, other people aren't delayed. So some of that is accomplished through the seasonal employees. I think we kept the ground seasonal, stable. Then in addition to that, we increased our, merchandise and food concessions. Anything that we purchase, anything that we sell at the clubhouse, we're gonna be making money on and in turn, putting that back into the retained earnings. So, that's money that's gonna go back into that fund. I'm not sure if there's any other ones that really are too large. And then there's the increases and the fuel and the, fertilizer materials.
Can I ask, so the, package hog receipts, for the last season were up compared to the year before. Do we know how much greater it was or what our, profit
I
was?
think retained earnings grew by 150,000, so
Great.
that would indicate revenue over expenses grew by that amount of money. So we had a good year.
150? Yeah, great, all right. So that's gonna be why we're
So I
seeing,
think
you know,
last year was the high water mark for revenue for the golf course. And hopefully with a good season, we'll expect something very similar to that.
okay, good.
We just opened the golf course today, so.
great.
With a brand-new system, we can book tee times online. And as of about, I don't know, about 3 years ago, we made about $21,000, because of, season passes, so off to a good start.
That was gonna be my question, season passes, has that been a success?
Great, yes, sir.
No, you go first.
I take it since we're increasing and we're doing additional merchandising, that they're anticipating that the bank charges for the use of plastic is gonna go up because there's a dramatic increase, so you're anticipating a lot more expense to your use of plastic.
Correct, so we wanted to increase that, as well as, and I know that we, it was underfunded, in the past, so we wanted to make sure that we account for that.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I feel like I ask this every year, and I apologize, and this is more for you, Ed. How much of this budget comes out of retained earnings? Like, or how does that work?
Nothing.
For those of us who are not accountants or have any of that background, like,
So the operational expenses, none of this comes out of retained earnings. Although I will then take a look at the capital side. I don't know if we have anything scheduled for capital in package hog this year. But any capital expense typically gets funded as a reduction of retained earnings.
essentially the point I'm trying to get at, and I'm doing it very inartfully, and I apologize, is this is all coming out of tax levy. How much money comes back, right?
Okay, none of this, not
This is
one penny of this
So
comes
this is
out
my
of,
question, yeah.
not one penny of this comes out of tax levy.
Okay.
It comes out of fees paid by those individuals playing golf.
So the entire budget is
Yes.
covered by fees. Great. That's,
And the revenue for that is, and concessions, when you put it all together, it's about $650,000 a year.
and I ask this question every year, and I feel like we get to the same point, but thank you for explaining it.
No, it's an enterprise account, just like the sewer department account, so it just kind of flows through this, but it's self-funded. All right, so the next, is the recreation department. Let's see, fiscal 2023 appropriation, $30,038. Excuse me, $30,038. Department request, town manager recommendation of the same, $31,024. Okay. And let's see, we look at the cemetery division next. Fiscal 2023, $204,976 appropriation. Department request, town manager recommendation of the same, $214,866, 4.83% increase. Okay. Hearing no questions, continuing to the sewer department, this is an enterprise account. The, sewer total, budget, $2,321,318. Department request, $2,715,782. The town manager recommendation, $2,525,142. Okay, and, any questions on sewer?
Just relative to that, to the difference in the department request versus the town manager, I believe most of it is that system evaluation. you explain what that was and,
So we're looking to fund, more of our testing of our sewer infrastructure. But upon discussions with Ed, it's more, I guess, more appropriate to ask, to look at the revenues, from the sewer division and then, and fund it through a direct, withdrawal from the retained earnings.
So if I may, the audit was presented to the Board of Selectmen Monday night, and the audit reflected a reduction in sewer retained earnings because there's a lag in revenues. And I think it's indicative of the economics that we're seeing now. So I think when people prioritize what they're gonna pay, it's real estate taxes first, and some things kind of take a backseat. So there's a lag. I was somewhat concerned about that. I had discussions with Joanna and Nick. We decided to address this through a warrant article. And it's the warrant article, Nick?
So we did talk about that, but just so you know, we did not submit this as a warrant article. It was our decision that we would forego that for the coming year based off of the recommendations that we got from the past year's SSCS project that is going to be recommending some capital projects that we're going to have to fund. And funding those projects in addition to doing additional SSCS studying, it would be too big of a hit to people. We'd have to raise rates and it would be too hard. We surveyed 10% of our sewer system last year. That is not a Mass DEP mandated number. That is just the plan that was come up for us. It is not required necessarily that we do it every year, as long as we show that we are progressing towards evaluating and making corrections as needed. So we did make some capital purchases. We have a new jet vac truck, and we bought a new CCTV sewer inspection camera so that we can do a lot of those inspections in-house. We're going to try to do as much of that as we can this year. And if we have additional capital funds left over, we may do some other testing as well. But the focus right now is going to be looking at those capital projects and how we're going to fund those, and maybe deferring the additional investigations for another year or so.
So the inspection, the assessment, the repairs of our infrastructure really we need to take a long-term approach. Those are discussions we're having. How we address that is going to impact the user one way or another. So either it's going to be through a operational annual expense of 160 or something very similar to that, or we may consider, and certainly I wouldn't consider at this time, is some type of borrowing that will allow us to accelerate that and do that and pay that over a period of years, at which point a portion of that borrowing may be considered under the sewer rate relief provision. We get a slight reimbursement from the state for that. These are the kind of things we're talking about. These are the kind of things we're examining, and we're gonna have to make a decision and bring something forward probably next year.
Okay, questions? I have a question about, the Upper Blackstone assessment. Now, I thought that was a fixed number, so if, the department request was 1.6 million, but the town manager recommendation was $1,569,360, why is there a differential, or a difference there?
So, I requested, 1.6 million at the time because, that number wasn't voted on yet by the Upper Blackstone. So just being conservative at the time, and then, came back to town and revised the number.
So that will be
Okay,
the
great.
actual assessment.
Yep.
And as Joanna stated, at the time they prepared the budget, that assessment was not known.
Okay. And, I see a big increase in the amount being budgeted for, retained earnings. I thought usually that,
So
yeah,
in FY '23, it was 100, and at the fall time meeting, we reduced it
Yep.
in order to balance the indirect costs, the operational expenses, so there wasn't a subsidy from the general fund.
okay.
So it's always been our intent, and we're gonna have to keep an eye on it again, to build up our retained earnings that will result in a higher free cash certification, retained earnings at the end of the year.
Rather than just waiting and folding some money into there at the end, just to plan on it. Okay. What other questions does anyone have? Yes, no? Now, our contingency fund was $20,000 in fiscal 2023, and it's now 10,000. Is that, why was that reduced? I thought that was kind of our backup in case we had issues, and, because it's very hard to you can't really transfer money into the sewer department.
So the $20,000 was in anticipation of the, union negotiations.
Yep. Oh.
So there was uncertainty on how much, what the wages are gonna be.
So you feel comfortable with the $10,000 as a contingency?
We typically go with the $10,000, but that was just because of the union.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Any other questions on the sewer department? Any other questions on, before we, vote on the operating budget, any questions? No, yes, no? Okay, so we're looking at a total, Department of Public Works, department request is $7,128,830. Town manager recommendation, $6,869,780. That's an increase of 11.55% to last year, or fiscal 2023. Do I hear a motion to recommend?
Motion to recommend?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to recommend that number. All in favor? Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Trevor?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Thank you.
Great. So we have two other things. We want to look at the capital, and there's a transfer too. So let's look at the capital. I see, nothing for fleet maintenance this year. Engineering division, DPW, let's see, there's a, we're in the middle of a, lease purchase for a jet vac truck. And, I see drainage too. 55,000, is that just drainage material? Okay. All right, we have, let's see, we have a, roadway improvement, $100,000. Resurfacing municipal lots, $150,000. Six-wheel dump truck, sand and plow, we're in a lease purchase for that, $65,000. This is the last year of it. A pickup, F-350 pickup with a plow. We're in the second year of the, lease purchase, $35,000. A loader, we're in the last year of the lease, or the fourth year of the lease purchase, $40,000. Sidewalk tractor, $47,984. Also a lease purchase. And a six-wheel dump truck, we're in a four-year lease purchase. This is the last year, $75,600. Any questions on those? In the sewer division, let's see, sewer line repair, $200,000, truck replacement, $80,000, sewer grinder replacement repairs, $45,000, superintendent vehicle replacement, $30,660, jet vac truck, $50,000. Questions? And the cemetery DPW, we have a mower, $16,000, some flagpoles, $21,000, backhoe, $40,000, and that's part of a lease purchase. And that's it. Any questions?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
You had a quizzical look there.
Yeah. You know what? Yeah, I will.
right.
Did we discuss a mower at town meeting last year?
We had a mower at the Bagdra Golf Course.
Okay.
So this one's for cemetery then? Yeah, okay. Okay, so we'll be voting on the CPI next week. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And now let's look at the, transfer. This is,
Madam Chair, did you,
are there more?
Solid waste?
Oh, I beg,
did we say, and,
yeah, I did parks.
we did first?
Yeah. Oh, no, I didn't. I beg your pardon. Parks. You're right. Okay, one ton dump truck with a plow, $80,000.
She's still in CIP.
A tractor, 3-year lease purchase, $25,000. And the Packagug, nothing for Packagug this year. Okay. So we're looking at a transfer for the Packagug Golf Course. These transfers are all coming from the contingency line, so do I hear a motion to take these 3 transfers together?
Motion to take 3 transfers together, Madam Chair.
Second.
Okay, so all in favor, Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Trevor? I think Trevor's gone, okay. So let's see, the first one coming from contingency, which has a balance of $2,000, is, amount requested $21.30 to DPW director's salary to reconcile account. The next item coming from contingency, which is now $1,978, amount requested $469.95 to the superintendent line to reconcile account. The third item coming from contingency, which now has a balance of $1,508, amount requested $322.89 going to the groundskeeper to reconcile the account.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor? Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Trevor's gone. Okay, and the chair votes yes.
Thank you.
All right, I think we're all set. Thank you very much. Thank you. Phew, all right. So, looking at our, thank you for coming in tonight. Looking at our next, we're gonna look at solid waste next. Oh, maybe you do want, yeah, all right. So solid waste, let's see, we have, fiscal 2023 appropriation, $1,287,305. The department requests and town manager recommendation are the same, $1,433,694. Okay, and I believe the contract was just, renegotiated and signed? Is that correct?
Good evening. So we are, for the hauling contract, for solid waste and recycling, we have been in negotiations with the current vendor, and we have come to an agreement. We're working through the process for final signature.
Okay, good. And that contract is for the pickup and the, disposal too?
So that contract is for picking up the solid waste, the recycling, and the yard waste. And also, we do have a processing of recycling material. So
Okay.
that is going to include all of that. We have, the other major line item that we have is for the disposal. So once the hauler picks it up, transports it over to the disposal facility in Millbury, that cost is for the disposal.
Okay. Any questions?
Just to clarify, the disposal contract is on a different schedule and we're,
It is, yes.
thanks.
Okay, and what year is this? Is this what year of the contract is this? We're looking at year 1 of how many years?
For which contract? For the, for collection. So, for the collection, that we're negotiating a 1-year contract. For the
With an
With
option,
option.
1 year after the first year.
Okay, Go ahead, and for the disposal?
And I'm sorry, for the disposal, that contract is, I believe it was a 20-year contract, and that contract is good until the end of 2027.
Okay, great.
Madam Chair, it's
Yes.
146,000 and change increase, 11.37. What we will now examine is, we'll do a cost analysis of expense versus revenue, almost as if it was its own enterprise account, but it's not. Because this cost should be paid by the user and should not be subsidized by anyone who doesn't use the program.
Yeah.
So we'll take a look at the cost. I know, back a year or two ago, we did an adjustment by examining the same thing. So we'll take a look at that, and we may recommend a increase in fee, for the users. This number really just came together today.
Gotcha. Okay,
And I think it is also important that you know just the overall cost for anything that has to do with solid waste disposal and recycling processing is just increasing significantly. So we're trying to manage that as best we can, to be able to, give the best service, but also managing how that fee is gonna be handled by the residents. So trying to get the most for the money
okay.
in these contracts.
Gotcha. Yes, sir.
Through the chair, can you give me a little bit of an explanation of why we have an other pickup line and what we would use that expense for?
Sure, thank you for the question. That other pickup line is really kind of it's like a float, I would say. So in the past, we have used it when we've had kind of like unusual situations where we may have, like illegal dumping in a certain area of town that requires us to get a dumpster, be able to handle it that way if any unusual cost we pull into that.
So you would say it's the removal of form of waste that doesn't fit into the other two categories?
Yes, that's a great way to put it. For the line items that you have for collection and disposal, those are really kind of a calculated from either the contract or the estimations for the tonnage. So we come up with those numbers that way, and that other pickup is really kind of,
Could you almost say not only unusual, but unforeseen or unexpected?
sure, yes, that's accurate. We just recently used that for a cleanup of a property that was very helpful.
Through the chair. So a couple years back, you were, a position was put in place to be a sort of a recycling educator, coordinator. I don't know if that's the same position. Does having that person in place, has that benefited us when we've been negotiating for our costs relative to pickup of recycling?
Thank you for the question, and absolutely, 110%. Yes. So that person, the solid waste and recycling coordinator, is literally out on the route every single day. So we have 6 routes in town with the 5 days, and Colleen is out every day running those routes in the same fashion that the actual hauler is going around. She is able to see from those, from traveling around town, she gets to see if there's a set out, which we call like when somebody puts out their carts at the curb, anything that is jumping out that isn't provided correctly. Happens pretty much every day. So she's able to snap a picture, leave her card, leave some education, to be able to help the resident understand why we can't pick that up. So things like we call snow coning. So if somebody is overflowing the trash cart,
I'm sorry, what'd you call it?
it's called snow coning. So picture like a snow cone, heavy on the top. So if that lid is up and they have all sorts of stuff coming out of the top, that's a chance where she'll stop. She'll tag the cart, leave a card, leave some sort of education about blue bags. So the blue overflow bags are what residents are able to use if they can't fit all the solid waste in their cart. So that happens more often, with households that generate a lot of trash, or around holiday time, summer times for cookouts and that sort of thing. We tend to see more blue bags at that time of year. And I have to say, it is something that, I've discussed with Ed, that by having that person out and doing the education, it really has increased our revenue on the overflow bags over the past several years. So that's helped be able to create some revenue for us, and ultimately that revenue offsets the solid waste budget. It generally is just so helpful to be able to have that person, to be able to have a direct connect right with the resident, and, she does a really great job.
Does it also work for the resident to contact her direct if they have issues with Casella, as opposed to
Absolutely.
getting their 1-800 number and ending up in Tennessee somewhere, or?
Yes.
Where you live? So she's the right person for that. And then the blue bags, those, so there is a revenue source for those that goes to offset the additional trash? And also bins. I know in past year, we've had some bins were sort of coming to end of life. Can you give us an idea of where we're at with the bin program?
Sure. So if I can just circle back to your first point, we do, as part of the contract, we feel that the hauler should have responsibility so that a resident who's on the system can contact them directly. So we do have that built into the contract. They are responsible to be able to handle those calls. However, if by chance they are rerouted to, sometimes it's Vermont, that they get rerouted to, and they do not get the correct information, they can contact our office. They can contact our office first that way also. We do have it as very user-friendly. We reroute the calls to Colleen, and she's able to make contact with Casella directly. We actually have our own reps that work at Casella that handle just our town. So there's consistency there. When there's an item of service, so say somebody wants to have a refrigerator picked up curbside, that's a service that this hauler does provide. So that connection is made. If for some reason there's some sort of issue, they can contact Colleen. Colleen gets the hotline over to Casella and resolves the issue that way. So very helpful to be able to handle all the questions, into one division under DDIS. So it's consistent. It helps with customer service. And I don't know if you remember, several years back, it was handled between two departments, and each department had their own pieces, but to have it all in one department really kind of helped. I think it helped both departments really to be able to, move in the same direction. So that is to the first point. And I'm sorry, you were asking the second question?
The bags do have a revenue source to
Yes.
offset the additional weight, right?
They do. We generate about $25,000 to $30,000 per year for blue bag revenue. And this kind of really kicked in a few years ago during the pandemic when everybody was at home. That's when we really noticed, oh boy, we have a lot of blue bags. People were working from home. We had the orders from the governor. That's kind of what kind of really helped us, realize that blue bags really do have an advantage for us for offset. So that has been incredibly helpful.
So Kevin, if you look at Article 3, the motion that goes before town meeting, there's an offset from an available fund of $25,000 to account for the collection and the disposal of those blue bags.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none, let's see, we have a department request and a town manager recommendation for the solid waste of $1,433,694. And that's an increase of 11.4% to, fiscal 2023. Do I hear a motion to recommend?
Motion to recommend?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, all in favor, Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Great, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And if I can just take one moment.
Yep.
You did ask about yard waste collection. So we have scheduled that. And yard waste collection, we have 9 total collections per year. We have 4 in the spring and 4 in the fall, and then we have a float. So we actually have 5 collections scheduled for the spring. And we do have a townwide cleanup day that's scheduled for Saturday, May 6, 8 to noon. We would welcome anybody that's interested to contact our department. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, great. All right, so now we're looking at, let's go to the finance department.
Save the best for last.
So that- Let's see, first we have the accountants budget, the assessors, and the treasurer collector. Okay, so let's see, town accountant budget, fiscal 2023 appropriation, $335,444. Town manager, recommendation is the same as the department request, $238,484. So there's a reduction, and that's because the, CFO, accountant amount has, reduced, that the position has changed over. Any questions on this line, on any of these items? All right, hearing none, and we can come back to it and ask a question. Let's see, the next is the assessors department. The fiscal 2023 appropriation, $204,763. The, department request was $231,773. And the, town manager recommendation, $212,309. Any questions?
Madam Chair, can I just
Yes.
make a comment?
Sure.
As you can see, there was a request for an adjustment for the division heads as well as the assistants, and that's something I'm committed to looking at. So they do a fantastic job. I think, we've identified several positions over the years that really need to be reviewed. This is one area I talked to Karen about, and I've talked to our new assistant town manager in Dory Vecchio. We're gonna take a look at these positions. They all deserve a review. I don't know where it's gonna end up, but this is something we may come back and ask for an adjustment, either through a reserve account or through a supplemental appropriation of fall town meeting. But I didn't have an opportunity to convey this to Seth and Mary Ann, and Karen. I've had some preliminary discussions with Karen. But this is something we're gonna work on in the coming weeks, so I'm just asking these individuals to please know that we're gonna be taking a look at these line items, okay?
Through the chair to
Yes.
the town manager, I don't know if we know Seth and Mary Ann,
Oh, yeah.
what positions do they hold currently?
So Seth is the division head for the assessors department. He's the chief assessor, and Mary Ann is our treasurer collectors.
Okay, thank you.
Questions on these budgets? Okay,
Sorry, through the chair.
Yes.
The update valuations line, I saw you lowered that by 10 grand. Is that just because where we were at a few weeks ago with not knowing state aid, or?
No, so we do have a outside warrant article for $25,000 that will be addressed at the annual town meeting. That is funded through a certification of overlay surplus funds, so that allowed us to reconsider this request.
Okay. Yeah, no questions? All right, we can certainly come back to it. The next is the treasurer collector, department. The, fiscal 2023 appropriation, $318,768, and department request $343,980. Town manager recommendation, $333,820. Okay, do we have any questions on those items? Okay, hearing none, let's see, for the, finance department, fiscal, 2023 appropriation, $858,975. Town manager recommendation, $784,613. Excuse me, that's a reduction of 8.66%. Do I hear a motion to recommend that?
Motion to recommend?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to recommend. All in favor? Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes. Diane?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay, so that one is set. Now we're gonna look at, our debt and interest.
Maturing debt, 710.
Yep. So maturing debt, 710. Well, there. The fiscal 2023 appropriation, $4,393,379. Town manager recommendation, $4,278,750. That's a reduction of $114,629, or of 2.61%. What questions do we have on that? I have a question. Which is the, middle school debt?
I'm sorry,
Which is the middle school debt? Which item on
well,
this list?
we had several borrowings from them
Okay.
because it was phased in, so.
All right.
We roughly, like the high school, I want to draw your attention to the top one,
Yep.
1,190,000. Next year, so we have one more year. June of 2024, which is a year from this year, we'll have one more debt payment and then that falls off. The middle school debt is combined in a portion of the 16 and the 12, but that's roughly, we
Okay.
borrowed about, it's the same, about $19-20 million for that.
Okay. Question on any of those items? How often do we borrow to pay for, our capital items?
So right now, we're on a, every other year schedule. So
Okay.
what we typically do, and we may extend the ban, all depending on the interest rates, because they're really climbing.
Yep.
I think if we were to go to market today, we would pay probably about anywhere from 4.5% to 5%. Where a few years ago, we were paying just under 2%
Yeah.
net interest cost. So that's pretty significant. So we have to kind of strategically determine when we're gonna go out. It may make sense to ban, because the rates are lower, and we're only paying interest and not making a debt payment. But that's something that we monitor on a annual basis. So we did go out and borrow this fall, which means we would renew it this coming fall and then bond it the following year. We normally ban for 2 years.
So the ban is the short-term borrowing
Right.
until you get it. Okay, thank you. Yep. All right. Hearing no other questions, do we have a motion to recommend the maturing debt, budget of $4,278,750.
Motion to recommend?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to recommend. All in favor, Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay, our next, budget is the interest. Fiscal 2023 appropriation, $976,356. Town manager recommendation, $817,233. That's a reduction of $159,123, a reduction of 16.3%. Questions on that? Anything you wanna highlight here?
No, the second line down is the band interest for the value that we went out for this fall, so that is an actual number.
Okay,
The rest is interest due as a result of our long-term borrowing.
Motion to recommend?
Second.
we have motion and second to recommend. All in favor, Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Madam Chair, it doesn't affect the voting, but do we have an account through to the town manager? Do we have an account that when we go to borrow, that we set money aside to settle the borrowing costs and so forth? Is it in one of these accounts or is it in a separate account?
No, so that law is now changed, so, we used to be able to force a premium,
Right,
set
yeah.
that premium aside, reserve it. We are using some of that as a result of some increased costs on the capital side that wasn't anticipated.
Which is why I asked the question during Bay Path, because I was just curious if they were expensing their costs in or not. And so therefore, we don't do that anymore, so there's no budget line for it.
Right, so we still have, I think we have 400,000, of which we're using 180 that allowed us to accelerate the inventory of the police fleet. And we entered into a two-year lease agreement, so we want to pay that off as soon as we can. And we went out for $50,000 for another capital item. I don't recall which one it is. So I think we're using about 230 of a reserve of about 400 and change that we have.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, okay. All right, so, that account's all set. Now we're looking at the pension and benefits.
Thank you, Mary Ann.
Thank you. Pension and benefits, let's see, fiscal 2023 appropriation, $13,476,218. This year's, town manager recommendation, $13,939,743. That's an increase of $463,525, 3.44% increase. Any questions on that?
Through the chair, just since OPEB came up quite a bit today, what are we putting into our fund?
So, great question. So we have, for the FY '24, we haven't made a recommendation yet. We typically do that at the fall. And we used to have a level of tax levy of $500,000 that really was a victim of the COVID cuts. Remember, we cut 1.3 out of the budget. We haven't reinstated that yet. So we're relying on our free cash to fund our OPEB, portion of our OPEB obligation. In addition, we have employee contribution now of up to 2% of gross pay going towards OPEB as well. So we have local or an employer contribution, we have an employee contribution. I think our OPEB, I'd have to take a look at it because we're getting a return on our investment that's actually growing now because the rates are going up. Karen, do you remember what's 6 million and change that we have in OPEB, which represents on a funding ratio of our OPEB liability? And that went up because the discount rate was reduced. I think our OPEB liability is 57 or 59 million. We funded at 6 million, almost close to 7 million. It's about a 12% funding ratio. We were a little higher when that liability moves up and down, depending on the actuarial, depending on the discount rate, a number of things come into play. But we're moving in the right direction, and I'm proud about where we are relative to our funding for OPEB. But right now, to Kevin's question, there's nothing earmarked for OPEB, other than the employee contribution.
And just, can you just remind me, having a healthy OPEB percentage, does that benefit us when we go out? Where does it benefit us, other than long-term obligations?
So it's looked very favorably by the rating agencies as a community's commitment to fund its unfunded liability or portion of its unfunded liability. So there's a benefit in hopefully an upgrade in our bond rating, which we already received. But at some point, as the auditor stated the other night, we're going to be able to dip into the OPEB to stabilize our rate of increase on the health insurance side.
Can I interject, because I'm not familiar with an employee match or an employee contribution? So if I work for the city of, or the town of Auburn, and I'm putting an employee contribution in, and then I retire and I have healthcare expenses, am I getting access, almost like a 401k, to have the percentage that I put in as an employee help me? So with that said, because I'm envisioning the employee portion starting to circulate through quicker than the employer portion.
So it's the employee contribution doesn't go into refund status when they retire. It's help funding a liability that's incurred through them participating in the health insurance plan.
Okay, so, okay,
So that had to be negotiated.
yeah.
So, there's some give and takes. It was a result of them participating in that, they got something else in their contract.
So to his point, because I know what you were talking about, when the whole idea of an OPEB trust is to get the principal, the volume of money up to a certain point where it generates enough activity that it offsets the hiring increased costs of healthcare.
Right.
So it can stabilize the future of people paying into the plan, and the return on investment is supposed to grow to keep up with the inflation. So costs can balance.
Yeah, I think if you were to chart your fixed cost and you look at your health insurance, it's outpacing all other costs within the general fund operating budget, and you need something to try to stabilize that. Now, we've been fortunate enough to do that through our self-insured trust. We have a balance of $11 million that we built up for over the last 15 years. And that's something we're very proud of, because we're able to minimize the rate of increase on health insurance for our employees and on the employer side by utilizing some risk of the trust, okay? That doesn't mean we're gonna spend it, but we're leaning on it a little bit to minimize cost.
But 11 million in a community this size over that period of time is extremely a good return. It's a good base
You comparing to adding
to other.
75,000 to your OPEB and adding
Well, I almost
10
wanted
positions,
to,
10 positions really.
The 7 million would be in addition to the 11 million that we've already built up, but it's in a different, you can't combine the two.
I was trying to compare Bay Path's presentation. It seemed like theirs was a drop in the bucket, and then adding on additional
Right.
positions.
Well, they have 1 million out of the way I heard it is they have a unfunded liability of 13. So when you look at 1 million as a ratio to 13, it may be comparable to what we are in terms of a ratio, because our unfunded liability is much higher.
lot more further.
Okay, questions? Want to talk, look at Worcester County retirement. I see it's almost 11% increase. So,
So, Madam Chair, I can tell you, if you look at the level of increase over last 5 years, it's ranged anywhere from 9 to 11%. It's pretty
Right.
consistent. In today's world, you know, our employees are living a lot longer. They're drawing, you know, more off of the pension benefit than in previous years, so I think that is to be expected.
And we get our discount?
And we get a discount, which is noted at the bottom. We take advantage of a discount because we pay, we're fortunate enough that our cash balance is great. I mean, we probably have $70 million in cash. And we're able to fund that up front and take advantage of a discount of $82,000.
Okay, good.
Through the chair, I think I've found my answer, but I was looking at the member communities for Worcester County retirement, and ours seemed significantly higher than anybody else, but I think when I saw comparable communities, some of those had regional school districts.
Right.
That,
Yeah.
that changed that, so. It's still, we're high, but that's all dependent on the number of employees we have compared to those communities.
And, we have a group health insurance, request of 8.5 million. So was that what our fiscal 2023 appropriation was, 8.5 million?
So in FY '22, we had a $700,000 surplus. And
Okay.
now we're paying actual claims, but these appropriations are based upon us feeding the trust on a premium basis, but we're
Yeah.
actually paying for claims. So we were able, as a result of that surplus, we're able to maintain that level of funding. There's one piece of this we're not gonna know until the end of May, and that's our reinsurance cost, but there is a 20%,
The stop loss
20%?
went up 20%?
excuse me?
Did the stop loss go up 20%? The
No,
reinsurance?
it's a cost that we've built in, even though we don't know the cost yet, so.
Okay.
Our stop loss is at 110,000, so we pay the first $110,000 in claims, the reinsurance kicks in, and we get reimbursed for anything over that. So we know the renewal and these numbers just really became known within the last couple of weeks. Our renewal, and we're putting some level of risk on the trust because we have an $11 million balance, will lead to a roughly just shy of a 5% increase in premium. As a result of that, our estimate, we would need about 8.2 million, and that does not provide for any growth, any new enrollees that may come on. So we believe the 8.5 million is adequate to meet the renewal.
Okay. Questions? Okay, so we have a, town manager recommendation for the pension benefits line, $13,939,743. Excuse me, which is a 3.44% increase to fiscal 2023. Do we hear a motion to recommend?
Motion to recommend?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to recommend. All in favor, Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So our last, the last item we're looking at tonight, the last budget we're looking at tonight is the Youth Commission. Last year, the, appropriation was, or fiscal 2023, the appropriation was $140,500. The department request is $155,000, and the, town manager recommendation, $144,012, which is a 2.5% increase to fiscal 2023. And they sent some accompanying paperwork, in a report of some of the services they provide, youth and family services. Any questions?
Madam Chair, just a quick comment. So we sat down with the Youth Commission. Julie and I, several years ago, committed to at least a 2.5% annual increase. And I think we also increased it by an additional amount over the past several years. In addition to that, the Board of Selectmen voted and committed a $60,000 annual contribution for a 3-year period through ARPA funds. So in addition to this, they're getting 60. They also gave them CARES money for the food pantry and things of that nature. So they're very appreciative of that. But we're committed to at least recognizing a level of growth to keep up with the rate of inflation, even though 2.5% may not be keeping up with inflation now. But in addition to the additional revenue they're getting through CARES, they're well above that inflationary factor. So we will potentially take a look at this in the fall to see if we can make some additional movement, but they were satisfied with our recommendation at this point.
So is that, was that $60,000 every year for 3 years?
Yes.
So 180,000.
So this was the first year.
Yeah.
Next year, in 2024, they'll get 60, 2025, they'll get 60.
Oh, great. So 180,000 over the 3 years, that's a good amount. Okay, any questions?
No, but I'm thrilled that they're appreciative of it. That's great.
So listen, we truly recognize the increase in service that they're providing as a result of COVID, as a result of a number of things that require our school children and members of our community to seek counseling help. So the volume increase is staggering, and we're hopeful that the 60 will go a long way in help meeting those needs.
Yeah, through the chair, I feel that the school department has caught up a little bit too.
And they
so
have
that
too.
It's taken some of I feel like Youth Commission through Auburn Youth and Family was picking up the slack for a period of time there. Again, this is just a perceived, it seems like the school department has ramped up their services to a degree that the need is balanced out a little bit at this point, whereas before this seemed like there may have been a shortfall, but, those funds, additional funds, plus the level of funding that we recommend here is,
I know the school department added two, not this, I think, maybe the year that we're in, to deal with the day-to-day issues. So I know there's after-school programs and services that are offered by Auburn Youth and Family Services, but I think there was a screaming need just to deal with the day-to-day stuff at the school department.
Okay, do I hear a motion to recommend the Youth Commission, budget $144,012, excuse me, 2.5% increase?
motion to recommend.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay, so that's all set. We have a transfer. Auburn Community Television Enterprise. Two transfers, both coming from the contingency account. The first transfer, the contingency line has a balance of $10,000. My requested $2,462 going to the salary line to cover the 1% performance evaluation salary increase.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor, Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. The next transfer, also coming from the contingency, which now has a balance of $7,538. My requested $132.47 to go to travel to cover greater than expected interdepartment and training mileage.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. All right, so let's, and that's it. All right, so on that, let's look at our, we have minutes. Because, that Sharon has emailed to us. Does anyone have any questions or concerns regarding the minutes? No? All right, so they're accepted as presented. Next week, we're going to look at the town meeting warrant articles and the CIP, vote on the CIP. So our town audit was recently completed. Can you email a copy of that to,
Sure,
our
absolutely.
members?
Yep, I'd be happy to.
Great, and could we have a, total on, our accounts, the reserve accounts, both of them, any of the revolving accounts, the, free cash, et cetera?
I'm gonna ask that our town accountant CFO provide that. I don't have access to that information anymore.
They don't let you, huh?
lock me out.
Change the
As
password.
they should, so.
Yes, all right, change the
It
password.
makes for good internal control, so.
Okay.
yeah.
So, yeah, just the account balances, so we can look at that next week when we're looking at the warrant. Okay, any questions? Yes, no?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just, there's a, and I know you were at the meeting the other night, so, and I know Sharon sent something out. I think there's a move to have a meeting on April 12th at 6 o'clock in the presentation room at the high school to discuss the public safety facility project. I know there's not an agenda item, but in terms of scheduling, that would be a joint committee of the Finance Committee, Board of Selectmen, and the School Committee to begin discussions and a strategy on how this is gonna be rolled out. Or what action is going to be taken, whether it's gonna move forward, whether it's not. I think those are the kind of things that need to be discussed.
Okay, so, will you provide debt schedules too at that point?
So, we can provide debt schedules, we can have a conversation about the debt schedules, but please keep in mind that these numbers are changing every day.
Right.
It's a snapshot in time, and I just don't want people to focus on a number and then say it's changed because rates are going up. Costs are going up.
Yeah, okay,
We do have debt schedules for an estimated cost of 78 million that we can share.
okay. And, one other question, does it matter if the town meeting vote is first or the ballot vote is first?
My opinion, I think it should go to the voters first, and then an authorization would have to go to town meeting to borrow the funds.
So you see it going to the ballot first and then go to town?
And we know it's not gonna make, if it's, the only one that can send it to the voters is the Board of Selectmen.
Right,
So the Board of Selectmen are gonna have to decide whether they wanna send it to the voters or not. If they send it to the voters, I see it having its own special election. Because the annual election is not doable. And they're just, so you know, there's no money set aside for a special election, so we'd have to consider that as well, if that's the way it's gonna go. And then, once that happens, then a special town meeting, I would suggest a special town meeting. A project of this magnitude deserves its own special town meeting. Would have to take place for a date to be determined.
okay. Thank you. Any other questions?
So if you could let
okay.
Sharon know your availability, we're trying to coordinate this. This kind of just all came together this morning.
Okay. All right,
Would it be prudent to just send an email out so we can respond to the email and then we won't lose sight of it?
I think the email went out, didn't it?
No, it
Okay, then the email won't go out. I think the plan was to inform you tonight. I know
It
the
just
school
helps with
committee
so many
indicated-
things going on.
They indicated the 12th would work, the school committee would work
Yep.
for them. And we're gonna notify the board.
okay, great. All right, hearing no other questions, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Okay, all in favor, Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Thank you, and the chair votes yes. We're adjourned. Oh,
No, it's okay.
all right, we're adjourned.
Doesn't have to be.